Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're going to give everyone a few minutes to log in. But as we go ahead and do that, I will go over a few housekeeping items for the webinar before we get started. This webinar will be recorded. We're recording it today, and it will be available on energycap.com within 24 hours of the webinar ending, so you can find it on our website tomorrow. We have got people tuning in from all over the world to this webinar, not only here on Zoom, but also on LinkedIn. So hello to all of our friends who are streaming live on LinkedIn. If you're tuning in on LinkedIn, feel free to drop questions into the chat, and we will be sure to get to those at the end of this session. If you're tuning in on Zoom, you can use the Q&A module on the Zoom webinar platform at the bottom and input any questions that you have throughout the presentation, and we will get to as many as we can at the end. Also, if you're on LinkedIn, we can't see who you are, so it's hard for us to know who's out there. So if you don't mind just dropping a chat to let us know where you're dialing in from, we'd love to see that come through. And I think that will go ahead and get started. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning in to today's webinar. The topic is why spreadsheets are costing you more than utility management software. My name is Amber Artrip. I am the Vice President of Marketing here at EnergyCap, and I'm so happy to be joined today by John Hines, who has been helping customers make the transition from spreadsheets to software for their utility bill management for over 20 years now. So thanks for joining me, John.
You are welcome. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Let's get into the agenda for today. So we're going to start out with just an overview of traditional utility bill management and the process that probably many of you are experiencing today, managing that data in spreadsheets. We'll talk a little bit about the difference between managing your data in spreadsheets and software, and we'll get into some hard ROI data points that can show how you're not only going to save money, but save a ton of time by making the transition to software. And we will share some stories from the field of some of our customers and the results that they've seen after making that transition. And finally, we'll end on some ways we can help you out with some tools that we've created to help you build the business case internally with your key stakeholders of why you should create a budget for this type of software and how you can pitch it internally. And then after that, we'll open it up for any questions you may have. So first, I want to pull up a poll, and I might need your help, Danielle. I'm not seeing it here. If you, oh, there it is. I want to pull. Can you guys see that poll?
I don't.
Hopefully.
Let's see polls.
There we go.
I got it. Go ahead.
There we go.
Yes, we are live.
So I wanted to pull up this poll just to get a feel for the folks out there. You are probably spending some time managing your utility data in spreadsheets, and we would just love an understanding of how many hours a month you're spending on utility bill data management in spreadsheets today. We're seeing some nuns out there. That's great. Those are probably some EnergyCap customers.
Yeah, keep it coming. It's always interesting, these polls, just to get a pulse on the audience, see where you're spending your time, the feedback that we can get from you, very valuable. Seems like right now we have a number that are in the 1 to 10 hours time frame.
And a handful of 30+ hours.
Definitely a handful of 30. No one in the 20 to 30 hours. Either we're really accurate with our timing, or just that's the window that none of you are experiencing time commitments on spreadsheets in.
Awesome. Well, it looks like the majority of folks are kind of in that 1 to 10 hours a month. So that's super helpful for us. Thank you. I'll go ahead and end the poll now. Share the results. Thanks for doing that. So at this point, I'd like to pass it off back to you, John. Tell us a little bit about what we're looking at here and how are people managing their utility bill data today?
Yeah, happy to. So just to give a little background, I've been with our company for over 20 years now. And so I've heard from a lot of organizations over that time about how they're managing all their utility information. And this graphic is a very common view that uh, prospects, customers have passed to me and our team over the years. And I'd like to call it the color-coded spreadsheet. And that's not a term that I've coined and phrased. It's actually a term that I've heard from multiple organizations, one in particular, where they standardize on color-coded spreadsheets. And the reason it's color-coded is because the colors highlight various bits of information that are important to look at. So using cell conditioning formulas and things like that to say, hey, everyone, are we trending up or down? Are we doing good? Are we doing bad? So what happens is it becomes really a bit of an eyesore in a lot of ways, functional, but can be an eyesore where over the years, organizational team members build new cells, new rows, new conditional formats and things like that, just to make better use and more effective use of the data. But then it becomes this massive spreadsheet that just kind of keeps growing and mutating and evolving. One of the other things that we see is, some prospects ask us, hey, can we do a proof of concept or a demo? And it's like, yeah, sure, we can do that for you. Why don't you pass over some sample data? So then we get spreadsheets like this, and we look at them and say, well, let's schedule a call to talk through what everything means in the spreadsheet. The reason I highlight that is because if that's the case, then I can only imagine other team members, whether they're new team members or just other stakeholders within organizations, if they get the spreadsheets, they're probably wondering the same thing, where it's not overly obvious what you're looking at. It's good raw data, but maybe not super intuitive or obvious what you're looking at, so you can make sense of all the data that's been collected. Also, data that's been computated. Very regularly, I've seen spreadsheets where there's cells with formulas in them, and you kind of have to go and try to trace where this value is coming from. It's not necessarily an entered number, but it's a computated number. And that carries over to currency, to units of measure, even simple things like I put in a 10. Well, now I need to do a conversion of currency or conversion of a unit of measure because I got billed in CCF, and I now need it to be decatherms, to roll up data across different units of measure. So a lot of spreadsheets have formulas and all these things embedded in them, and they just become difficult to look at and to manage. So this shouldn't be, news to anyone. Spreadsheets incredibly flexible. For a lot of us, they're free, right? Generally you're paying Microsoft licenses or Google, licenses, things like that. So in theory, they're free to use, but there's a huge time commitment that is put into upkeep and management of spreadsheets. And then the ever evolving door of creating new reports, new views of data, crunching data. And so that's where a lot of the expense comes into spreadsheets. And the journey we're about to embark on in this webinar is to talk about, while Excel is flexible, it's not necessarily the most efficient use of resources for every organization.
Yeah. And I just want to add that, we've done surveys in the past of the market just to understand where people are at on their journey of utility bill management. And if this resonated with you and this is how you're operating today, you are not alone. Upwards of 40% of folks are still managing their utility bill data in spreadsheets. There, of course, is a better way, but just so we're living in the transition now. We're starting to see more and more people transition into software, but this is still very much the status quo. And so we wanted to create a tool to help folks who are managing their data in spreadsheets today. And we created this utility bill audit checklist. So say you're managing all of your data in a large color-coded spreadsheet like John just showed. we created this utility bill audit checklist to help you identify savings in that data. So if you were to go through and do it manually, you could do these checks yourself. You can go and download this on our website at energycap.com/downloads if you would like access to the checklist, or just ping us in one of the chats, or drop a question to let us know if you'd like this spreadsheet, and Daniela will send it to you. But we created this because these are all the checks that we are doing in Energy Cap today, but they're automated. So imagine, not only do you not have to deal with getting the data into the spreadsheet, but all of these checks and audits are happening for you on the back end automatically, saving you a ton of time and elevating opportunities for savings in your utility bill data. With that, I'll pass it to John to talk a little bit more about the status quo of spreadsheets versus how we're shifting to a world where more of this data is being managed in software.
Yeah, the commonality with spreadsheets and software is you have a data warehouse that's housing data. Okay, so spreadsheet is a data warehouse. It can have many tabs, and you can use Power Pivot and just other tools that are basically calling on the warehouse of data to perform analysis and other types of functions. Software, it connects to a database that is storing data, and the software is the way that you access and analyze and get your hands on the data that's stored in it. But for a lot of organizations, again, the spreadsheet model, it's easy, it's free, free in theory. But there are some, challenges with it. And so we would look at it as really spreadsheets are the status quo. It's easy to use. Again, easy to access. Everyone generally has access. I mean, Google offers free access to their version of spreadsheets. But there's a lot of challenges in using those. One of the ones that we see that Amber highlighted is data accuracy and auditability. If I have a huge spreadsheet and I delete data in a cell, like the cell's gone, I save it, move on. How would I ever know that I deleted that I made a change? Really difficult. There are some tools that you can look at, who edited certain fields, but it's normally not really robust to really call out users, and have a specific stamp that data's been changed, or any level of checks that are out of the box that are just validating data, making sure it's accurate and highlighting problems. It's not just so much the data accuracy of bill data or interval data or any types of data that you're tracking. It's the ability then to go deeper and say, we've learned your data, and let's use the wisdom that we've had from repeatedly analyzing, bill data or other kinds of data to then spot potential problems. So it's finding and ensuring that data being entered is accurate, but then also taking it a step further and using the smarts that can be built in to highlight problems to look at. We also find a lot of issues in data silos. That would be, I have a spreadsheet, I'm working on it. Amber says, hey, John, I want access to data. In today's world, you do have SharePoint and other tools to share, which is great. But what we tend to find is most spreadsheets are owned and controlled by a very small group within an organization. And then when others want data, it's like, let's package it up and send it out. Like
Or
you
they make their
cannot,
own spreadsheets, right?
or
I've
they
seen
make their own.
instances
That's
where you
right.
have two different groups that are using two different sets of data.
Absolutely right. Because if I'm the holder of my database, I don't want Amber or other team members to necessarily have access to edit the data and make changes. So I'd rather feed them data. So you see data siloing going on within organizations. It's also in spreadsheets hard to maintain and update, hard to develop new capabilities. You have to have an inherent will to learn how to build things. If you want a new view of data, yeah, it's flexible, but it's time consuming to build, and a learning curve to understand how to get data out. There's also, if you want to compare data, there's tooling within spreadsheets and other types of applications to bring in weather data, maybe carbon factor data, some of those other types of variables that you want to compare with your energy data. But you have to write all the code to say, bring in weather data from a source, write the statistical correlation codes, and then provide the outputs, and then maintain that ongoing. So can be very time consuming. Also, now all of a sudden you're a programmer and not just a data, analytics person that's viewing the data and using it strategically to perform a function. So a lot of issues, flexibility, right? But a lot of issues with the status quo. So let's talk about the paradigm shift to software. Software is around for a reason. We wrote our first lines of code in 1980. So long time ago. The whole premise when we first started was, let's use technology to solve manual processes. And back then, spreadsheets didn't even exist. It was writing down, data on basically pencil and journal ledgers, keeping track. And it's like, there's got to be a better way to do this. So the use case, the value statement for software really is the same. Let's take out manual, error-prone steps and do what we can to automate data, to make it smarter, use technology to our advantage to make your life easier. So what can software do? It can automate the capture and entry of data. It's auditable. And we use the concept financial grade because the database is a secure database. If you make a change, you have to deliberately make a change to a record. It gets stamped who made the change and when. So again, auditable, right? In Excel, you delete a cell, it's gone. Like who did it? What happened? Don't know. A proper software system and robust database is going to keep record of those things, so it's financial grade reportable. You're getting updates in real time. It's not that I'm saving data to my spreadsheet and then sending it to Amber weeks later. Everyone can access it in real time. The other side of that is everyone can access it. When you have SaaS software, anyone can access it that you give permissions to, which reduces a lot of time and effort and costs in creating views of data, pushing it out to users, and a lot of manual steps in the process. It fosters an environment of better collaboration, and it's also way more scalable, right? Smaller teams can maybe work in silos, but when you have larger teams, and especially a larger number of business units, departments, stakeholders, you need solutions to be scalable so then everyone can get access to the data. The last takeaway point is, let's be proactive instead of reactive. Let's monitor and respond in real time and feed problems and issues to your team, and be more proactive on data rather than having to build everything and being reactive.
I love it. So we've got a couple more slides that kind of outline the reality that we're seeing today and the possibility.
Yeah, and so let's talk about the teams that you're on. We can talk about the actual platforms, spreadsheets versus software, but there's also a shift that needs to happen on the teams and on the mindset of the users. Throughout, again, my experience, there's been a lot of manual processes that have gone on within organizations, and they're scattered and inaccessible data. And let me kind of talk about both points. One of the exercises I love doing with organizations is like, let's whiteboard your processes, okay? Let's whiteboard and talk about all the steps of data collection, data processing, data entry, data audit, auditing and validation, approvals, ways that data needs to flow to other systems or other team members, and then all the way to getting a bill paid. So let's just, when you focus on utility bills, how do you get it? How do you pay it? I can't tell you how many on-site meetings I've had where we're whiteboarding and we're going through 11, 12 processes of steps that an organization takes literally to receive, enter, and then pay a utility bill. Because there's all these levels of approvals and oversight that needs to happen. Some organizations have people that have to stamp a bill and then send it to someone else. And I get that there's steps within processes to get things approved. There's also ways to do those steps automated, using tech to our advantage and making it way faster. A really common workflow for most teams is the receipt of bills and entry into multiple systems. It's literally receive a bill, enter into a spreadsheet, also enter into an accounting system, and off you go. That to me is very inefficient. It's prone for errors. What I enter into the spreadsheet might be different than AP. Also, I could get a rebill, and then and I'm entering into one system, maybe not the other. So there's a lot of prone issues in having disparate entry and processing of data. A lot of energy teams also have lack of actionable insights. So yeah, you get the data, but really, how do you interpret it? How do you analyze it? Maybe there's ways to look at it that you're not thinking about, that you haven't created in a spreadsheet. So helpful to have other industry standard and best business practice capabilities to guide you in your journey. We also are hearing more and more about complex energy data analysis. And what we mean by that is it used to be simple. Years ago, it was like, we need to track use and cost. Let's mainly focus on cost, and that's all we care about. And we don't really care about all the bill line items. Not that difficult. Well, today you have time of use rates. You have demand, which can be 50% plus of your bill. Has nothing, well, it has to do with usage, but curtailing and managing demand in certain peak times of demand throughout the year can be a better way of cost efficiency than tracking consumption and monitoring consumption. There's all these complex issues that are just more relevant now today than ever. And you need complex tools to address those. There's more governance, sustainability, and compliance challenges. So take that same usage and cost data that we were tracking in the early 80s and now apply carbon factors to it, location-based, market-based, renewable purchases that we're making, clean energy, all those kinds of things. It is making it a lot more complex. And so you need data visibility and also the tools to interpret the data properly. And we can't stress enough fixing inefficient processes. When I started, I talked about 11, 12 steps. What if we can make it 3 steps? That's what we've been helping organizations do, but you can't live in the spreadsheet world. You got to be in software and automation of processes. So how are we helping teams? Automated collection of data. We have on here bill data. Bill data is one major element. It's a necessary evil. Everybody, whether you're renting or you own a house or you're the energy manager of a manufacturing company or a city government, like everyone gets utility bills. So you need to process and pay them. But there's also some rich information. If that process can be automated, you are not focused on manual steps of data capture. You are now just spending a lot more time analyzing, making sense of the data, and finding savings opportunities than processing, manual data entry. The other thing I would add here is interval data and other variable information, which we'll get into in a bit. It's not just bill data, it's pulse readings, it's solar, production data that might be valuable to you. It's airline travel when you start looking at scope 3 emissions reporting. It's other variables that are now becoming more and more important into energy and sustainability reporting. And that data, it's now getting larger. It needs to be automated. You also need it to be reliable and accurate. So you need checking. And that's where Amber, I think, great that she mentioned a resource we're putting out there that anyone can access to say, even if you are doing things in a spreadsheet, think about adding additional checks into your process. They come standard in things that we built, and we're continuing to build checks all the time. But even for you, if you're not doing some of these, start to consider. The centralization of data is key. One of our taglines, like 15 years ago was get a handle on your energy information. Really difficult to do that in spreadsheets. A lot easier when it's a centralized platform that's managing the data. It's the warehouse. It's where everyone's going. It then makes data actionable. Hopefully also other processes made easy, like payments of data, payments of bills. Simplified reporting and dashboarding, critical part of software to make sure that your data has life. So let's talk about the concept, bigger data or better data, bigger impact. So if you have software that's giving you better data because you have automated processes, you have checking on the data, you have data assurance that it's accurate, it's financial grade, it is better data, you can have a better impact in the work that you are doing. Now, where we always start is with the monthly utility bill. I mean, really focus this webinar is based on energy data. So we start with bill data. I mentioned earlier, it's necessary. You get it. Everyone gets bill data. So if you can streamline the acquisition process of data, you can then streamline audit processes to make sure it's accurate. There's allocation steps that are necessary to ensure departments, stakeholders, tenants are being allocated the proper buckets of cost, use, carbon. By doing all of those steps, you then can have good, accurate analytics and reporting processes. And that's how you make a bigger impact. By getting data in an automated way and ensuring it's accurate, and then doing all the distributions and allocation, GL codes, those kinds of things, you now have what you need to report accurately and to provide analytics to make a bigger impact. Oh, and by the way, because you get bills, there's also streamlined processes to pay. Whether you need to pay or you want, us to pay on your behalf, we can do that. That way, it's literally just taking all these, processes that can be complicated and cumbersome and costly, most important, and putting it into the tech service to do all that for you. You then will have actionable views of data, and you can focus in other areas. If you have bill management done well, you can then focus and get more granular and get into deeper savings. Interval data analytics, understanding how your buildings or sites are performing in real time, so you can drill into deeper levels of savings. You can also monitor equipment and zones of the building. That helps with driving deeper savings, okay? The other side is compliance and carbon accounting. So you can make a bigger impact by having better data at your disposal. And for most of you, it's becoming a compliance issue as well. So check the box off on compliance, along with just having the smarts to drive and get better savings. Managing buildings it's about operations. What we like to look at is utilities is the #1 controllable operating expense within buildings. So let me say that again. It's the #1 operational expense within buildings, meaning what is it, what you're managing facilities, it's costing a lot to heat, cool, and perform other functions within your buildings. What we're presenting here is a snapshot of the various buckets of information that are pretty common for customers to track within our software. So getting back to the spreadsheet issue, great if you're tracking heating, fuel, maybe water and electricity in your spreadsheets. But that's not all the costs that go into the operations of your sites. There's internet and telecom and waste and a lot of water commodities, not just water and sewer. There's irrigation and fire protection and other types of things that you might need to bucket and report on. There's impacts of occupancy. You have maintenance fees, you have snow removal and lawn care. You have maybe some solar generation or other types of renewable generation. There's a lot of different impacts that affect the costs to operate a building. These all can be tracked within the platform, within the software. There's also emissions tracking that can be applied to all of this information so you can, really hone in on your carbon emission compliance reporting. So I want you all to think a little bigger. It's not just, again, the core utilities. It's what operationally are you spending in your buildings to make them operate. Those are the things you can manage, and you can automate processes and do all that great stuff we talked about within a software application.
I find that really inspiring. Utility bills are a great first step to get the data, like some data that's pretty ubiquitous. It comes in monthly, and you can do a lot with utility bill data. But some of our more advanced customers are incorporating these additional data points to track and find additional ways to save, reduce carbon, be more efficient in general. And it is like some of these stories are really, really inspiring. So I'm glad that you shared this, John, because I know it gets my brain working about how you can track additional data points for just further optimization.
That's right. And we see some organizations that are leasing buildings, and sometimes utilities are built into lease, but for some of the buildings, they still get internet bills and telecom or some other things. Again, it's operational costs. We also see organizations that have telecom systems, which are separate than utilities, and energy, which are separate than other types of, again, it's operational costs, but you have different systems. Well, why are you paying multiple licenses when you can, consolidate everything into one platform, one process across the board to get bills entered, audited, paid? It seems to make a lot of sense to me. So.
Yeah. And if there's something on this list that you're not seeing, the cool thing about Energy Cap is we have custom commodities. And one of my favorite stories about a use of custom commodities is one of our university clients wanted to track the cattle on campus. So we created a cow custom commodity for that customer to track the carbon emissions from the cattle from their campus farm, which I thought is just like a really fun and unique example of how you can really track anything in Energy Cap.
That's right.
So let's get to my favorite topic is how does all of this help us save money? And so a few years back, Lawrence Berkeley National Lab here where I live in the Bay Area did a study that lasted 5 years, and it followed organizations who implemented energy management information systems across those 5 years to understand what was the impact of implementing this software on the organization. And there was a vast majority of different types of industries, organizations that participated in the study. The study was funded by the Department of Energy. And at the end of the study, the result was that on average, organizations see about 3% in energy cost savings annually after implementing an EMS system. Great savings. Can you imagine if you were able to save 3% or more on your utility costs each year? That's a huge chunk of change. I would challenge you to do that math. So we thought, okay, that's really interesting. I wonder what Energy Cap customers are experiencing. So my team on the marketing side, we did a survey of our own to our customers to understand what their average cost savings of their utility bills each year were after implementing energy cap. And we found, on average, energy cap customers save 7.5% a year on their energy costs, which is a great number. We're super proud to see that that's well over the industry average from the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab report. And then kind of if you go to the right side of the page here, we kind of get into the deeper analytics. We found that more than half of our customers experienced 10% or more savings year over year, which is just a huge number. And we're really, really proud of that, the way that we're helping our customers not only like save time and be more efficient and have better ways to access their data, but to save some serious cash each year. And, you know, our hope is that they're taking that money and reinvesting it in energy projects to continue to, you know, make their operations more efficient moving forward.
I would like to make a point there. If you
Go
go
ahead.
back a slide,
Sure.
I think it's noteworthy to mention that the overwhelming majority of organizations that move forward, you know, realize some level of savings. Savings are really difficult to forecast ahead of time without understanding a lot about an organization's process. Because we do get the question, how much can I save? It's like, well, here you go. Like these are stories told by our customers. This isn't us making it up. 7% have not yet realized savings. It just means that their stage, you know, they could be early. Maybe they never even thought about trying to, you know, quantify what the investment they put in compared to the results they get. You know, but we're not saying 100% here. You know, it's some of it we don't know. Some organizations are pretty efficient. They implement software and they improve some areas. You know, maybe the savings aren't as great. Then we see others that think that they're efficient and they're at the 10+%. What we would certainly encourage you to do is do what I said, whiteboard some processes. Think about how you're processing data, what systems you're using. Can you consolidate some of those, you know, factor in cost for some of those things, time, all those areas, and then you can maybe start to put some numbers to this. And our team is happy to walk down this journey. But I do think it's helpful to point out, you know, every organization realizes some level of savings, and to understand what yours might be. You know, there's some variables that you need to drill into.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, John, because, you know, we are a software company, we are a data company, but it's all about what you do with that data that's going to drive savings. We can elevate, you know, and alert you to different audits that we've catched or flag different potential errors that we've catched, but it's all about two-year process for how are you going to act upon the data and what decisions are you going to make based on the data that we're, you know, the energy cap is providing you. Really good point. It's not just cost savings, it's also team time savings. So what would you do with all of the time back that implementing a software platform for utility bill management would provide? We found when we asked customers that the average energy cap customer who also had bill capture services saved on average 37 hours a month in employee time savings. 25% of all of our customers saved at least 40 hours a month, and 8% saved more than 60 hours a month. I think the bottom line here is that, you know, you're going to save time by automating a lot of these processes, especially the data capture. And you know, and on top of that, you get the audits and the analytics that can help you, you know, take all that time that you're saving and focus that time on the projects that are really going to make an impact at your organization from a efficiency standpoint and a cost saving standpoint.
Amber, let me bring back in our survey. I'm looking at the survey results. Okay.
Yep.
So what we're saying here, granted, like we said 30+ hours, not 40+, but if you look at the over 40 in this polled from our customers, we said about 25%. The poll today was 27% at 30+ hours. So I think everyone on this call, you're kind of confirming our numbers here.
Yep.
We had, let's see, 55% that were in the
1 to 10.
1 to 10. Okay, so close there, and then 9% that were in the in the lowest. But I think you all are confirming a bit, like the numbers, not complete one-to-one comparison, but still many of you, a quarter of you spending a lot of time, and still the large majority spending, double-digit hours per month that hopefully could be converted into more meaningful time elsewhere.
Yeah. And I just did a quick little chat GPT search, and what is the average energy manager salary in the United States? And it's somewhere between 100K and 120K. And so these are expensive resources, and energy managers, you know, I also kind of think like spending, 30 hours a week for an energy manager in a spreadsheet is just kind of a waste of time and resources, right? Like you could be out there doing projects and strategizing on how to decarbonize your operations. And there's so much more that you could be doing with that time. And I think the beautiful thing about Energy Cap is it takes you out of the spreadsheets and allows you to focus on the work that, you were hired to do. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I wanted to prove that this isn't just us talking. We have concrete customer evidence, and you can go and dig into these stories on our website. But one of our amazing customers, AFL, we recently did a case study and a press release with them, and they had an amazing success story after a year of implementation. And proof here on the right, you can see they calculated that they're saving on about 36 hours a month, which is spot on with what our industry average is for our customer base, just by us streamlining their over 200 utility accounts. It's a really great story. And on top of that, they dug into the data and were able to use the audits and the flagging capabilities in Energy Cap to identify over $300,000 in energy savings last year. It's a really, really cool story. I definitely recommend you go and check it out on our website. We have a video, there's a podcast, there's a press release, there's a case study. We're really, really proud of our friends over at AFL and all the great work they're doing and continue to do. Another cool story is one of our customers, University of Texas Medical Branch Health Department. They've been a customer for a long time and use our full suite of Energy Cap software solutions, including our carbon accounting and interval data management solutions on top of utility bill data. And I think that this is a really cool story, that when they have a central plant that's, I think, over 50 years old, that's in dire need of just a complete rehaul, and they applied for a federal grant last year to redo their central plant. And it was a very short time frame that they had to submit for this grant. And because they have all of their data in Energy Cap, our main user over there, Sean Finnegan, was able to go into Energy Cap and in 20 minutes pull all of the information that they needed to submit for this grant, that was able to show how implementing improved assets at this central plant would reduce carbon, save money, and be more efficient for UTMB. So it's a really, really great story. This one's also on our website if you want to go check it out. And then, John, I'm going to pass it over to you to talk about Miami-Dade County.
Yeah, my pleasure. Well, if you don't know by now, we all get great pride in talking about our customers. They're doing some really amazing things, and very different and unique. The focus is the challenges that they have, commonality being they all can talk the same language. And so when they share stories, it's great because we could say, well, go run this report and let's look at savings and things like that. So really easy for us to start to aggregate, numbers and help customers tell their story. Miami-Dade specifically, one of the larger counties, 1,500 plus facilities, thousands of utility accounts. One of their largest challenges to start was they have 24 departments within the county that all have to approve utility bills before they go get paid. So you can imagine if bills are going to each department, and each department or their assigned rep is receiving a bill, like stamping it, okay, we approve this after we eyeballed it, it looks good. And then it goes and gets paid. very inefficient process. We implemented with them receiving EDI bills from FP&L. So bills are streamlined, the collection, the audit. We then route those bills digitally to the departments, and they put a digital stamp and approve. And this is after it's gone through, automatic audits, as Amber has talked about. And then they can get bills approved, and then there's a connection to their financial system. So just doing that alone saved them tons of time and expense on bill collection, approvals, and entry processes, and made it a lot more organized. Something else we found just in the initial implementation and then kind of monitoring after a while is two main areas where they incurred like savings immediately. And this wasn't time savings. This was savings realized by having better visual, visibility of the data and scrutiny of the data, which you just wouldn't get in spreadsheets because they had some spreadsheets they were using. One of them was theft. So, residents that are just tapping into utility lines and stealing from them, and they were able to spot those things and go correct the issue. And we've heard that not just from them, from some other organizations, where if you go to like an like a housing unit, you could say, well, I see what's going on there. You just can't, you can't see like the theft, like the lines going when you're, at your office. So they, have some spike in the usage, said, hey, this doesn't seem right. Let's go to the site. And it's really visual and visible what's going on. So able to correct those issues. The other one is account ownership issues. In their case, they were paying a substantial electric bill that was being billed to them incorrectly, and they were able to identify it and say, whoa, like this isn't right. And so able to correct that, and the utility had to reroute it to the correct tenant. We have another energy manager in the Virginia area that swears by go out and look at every meter. For this exact reason. Go out and look at what you're getting billed for if you don't know exactly where it is, and just see physically where things are. Because if you operate numbers of facilities, in their case 1,500, you might be getting billed for some accounts that aren't yours. And that is a immediate area for savings. And how would you know that? Well, again, better visibility in a system can help highlight that. Some other things Miami-Dade's been doing is they've been really working on carbon reduction efforts. So tracking their consumption is step one, and then applying the right conversion factors and focused on scope 2 reporting. Well, scope 1 and 2, but mainly for them, it's scope 2. They have a high electricity load, more so than some of the scope 1 commodities. But they've been able to reduce 9.8% and being able to report on it and justify the work that they've been doing. And some of it's through grants and other types of funding initiatives, and they have to report back. So, Miami-Dade for me is doing a lot and been very successful.
I feel like we could do this all day, talk about our customers and all
Sure.
the great stories. And it's really, really fun to be a part of this team because of our customers. If you go and check out our website, you'll see hundreds of quotes and hundreds of stories of just what we're seeing here is all of the success.
Yeah, well, let me give one more story, which is one of my favorites. We don't have a slide for it, but I just think it's a lot of fun. So this is it's a truck rental company where you can go and you can rent trucks. And so the shops, like the stores themselves, they have a bunch of them, aren't that large. And they were running some audits on water meters, and they noticed one water meter that was just off the charts in usage. And they're looking at it like that is tied to like a retail store. How in the world is it that high consumption compared to everything else, like all the other stores? It's massive bill. So they called the utility, and the utility said, no, that's what the meter's reading. I said, So they go to the site, and then they noticed that there was a bathroom that was kind of boarded up, like it was shut off. So they went in there, and they're like, okay, it's leaking a little bit, but like this doesn't make any sense. But they thought maybe that's the problem. So they installed a camera, and what they found on the weekends was one of the store manager would allow their buddy to come in with a big water truck and fill up the water truck and they would apparently sell water in mass quantities. And then they're like, that makes a lot of sense why my usage is so ridiculously high. But they wouldn't have never been able to find that kind of thing without, the ability to look at the data and then, in their case, compare it to others and say, well, there's something not right here, and they got to the root of it. so,
Oh my gosh. That
so,
reminds
so
me of another
that's at its
customer.
best.
There was another customer story of a high-end retail, like a luxury retail store in London, and they could not figure out why the lights were getting overridden from the control system in the evenings. And they did the same thing. They put in cameras, and they found out that the store employees were living there overnight. They moved
Wow.
into the luxury retail like store, and they would have never have known if they weren't tracking that data. So it's like these stories, we could just do this all day. I really mean,
Yeah.
like it's wild. I love it. So if you're listening to all of this and you're thinking, yes, I'm using spreadsheets today. I would love to use software, but I don't know how to get the budget. I don't know how to convince my boss. I don't even know where to start. I want to let you know that we can help. First of all, you can just email us or call us, and we're happy to like do this with you. But we also have some resources that you can download for free that will help you build out a business case. We have some that are specific to some of our favorite industries. We have some that are more generic. We also have a PowerPoint template that you can download that will walk you through all the steps to build the business case and pitch it to your boss. We've created all of these tools, and we are going to be hosting a webinar in a couple weeks on all of these tools that we've created and some ideas for how you can build a business case for utility management software. So visit energycap.com/events if you are interested in attending that webinar and learning more. And before we go and get to the questions, I do just want to ask you guys what you thought of today's session. I'm the VP of Marketing, so I care deeply what you think here. If this was helpful, if you would like more content like this, if you'd like us to just go ahead and sign you up for the next webinar, you can select the first little node there. But if this topic wasn't for you, let us know. We'd love some feedback. It just helps us improve our content and create great webinars for you in the future. So thank you for that. Excellent. I will go ahead and move on. One more question for you guys. If you liked what you heard today and you would like to hear from someone from our team, please go ahead and let us know. Number one, if you're interested in learning more about Energy Cap and if you'd like to speak to someone, or not, that's fine too. We'd love to connect with you if you do have any interest. Great.
We appreciate all the feedback. We always want to hear from you. So please reach out to us with any questions. You can also go to our website. We have a new chat bot enabled. You can leave comments there as well. I think, Amber, we're going to open it up for some questions. We still have a few minutes here.
Yeah, we've got some time, so let's go ahead and feel free if you haven't entered your question yet. Feel free and enter it now.
Otherwise, if you need to drop off, we appreciate you attending and look forward to you participating in a future webinar.
Great. Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions come in. Tough crowd, tough crowd.
Yeah.
Or maybe we just answered all the questions.
I think they're all installing cameras on their water, outdoor water, to make sure that they don't get someone filling up a swimming pool every weekend.
Yeah. We did just release a self-guided demo for how to find a water leak in your utility bill data. That is a really common one that we hear from customers all the time, and a big driver of cost savings is being able to identify water leaks early. And we created a little self-guided demo. It takes about a minute and a half. It's on our website, and you can kind of click through the Energy Cap platform and the experience, and it shows you how to spot a water leak on a bill. It's pretty cool. Okay, well, I guess if we have no questions, we can go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you, John. Oh, wait, I did get a question.
I was
Finally,
just
got
gonna
one.
jump in.
There's a question here, John, that we can answer easily. Is Waddix a part of Energy Cap now? The answer is
Yeah, so the fact that you referred to it as Waddix, y- y- let me answer it this way. For those that don't know, we did acquire a company, Waddix. Waddix is a platform that tracks interval data. We've rebranded the name of it to Energy Cap Smart Analytics. Smart Analytics, as of today, is still a separate platform. Coming very, very soon, we are moving the functionality of formerly Waddix into the Energy Cap platform. So stay tuned. We're going to be having larger announcements soon about that. So Smart Analytics will be integrated and part of the larger platform that is Energy Cap.
Yep. But today
Great question.
also Energy Cap data and Waddix data speak back and forth. So there is a tight integration for those who are interested. Okay, now I'm scared to end it because there might be another question that pops in. But thank you, everyone. Thank you, John, for partnering with me on this webinar. I think it was some great content. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. And we'll see you at the next webinar.
All right.
All right.
Everyone.